All right, so unrestricted submarine warfare. Again, just watch that video. That should have been a good understanding of it. The Lusitania, which you had a reading on. Okay, we're going to talk about that more here today. The Zimmerman telegram. If you want to put the Zimmerman note, that's fine too. A lot of people refer to it as that. And then convoy system. So the convoy system, this is a way for these massive ships, supply ships, armaments, even troops that America is going to be sending across the Atlantic. You have to have some sort of way to protect them from these submarines that are constantly on the attack. All right, so there you go. Today, guys, if you want to kind of title this lesson today as events that lead to America's involvement in World War One, that'd be good. So we already talked about the causes of World War One and 1914. Well, now here, as we're getting into the war itself by 1915, and then definitely by 1917, these events are happening that really put America in a hard spot. Well, we have no other solution, no other choice here. We got to get in. All right, we got to get involved. There you go. Yep. Everybody's listening. Right, Sabrina? Just kidding.
Whoa.
All right, so unrestricted submarine warfare. Real quick, as we're talking about the war, right, as it's prolonging here by 1915, Germany has to do something. Right, this war has been going on for a year, and we know that, well, it's a bloody stalemate. So very defensive, and there's just not a lot of movement. Right, what was the style of warfare again? Oh, we should know it. Come on now. Adrena. Trench warfare, good. And Germany, being in mainland Europe, they are limited to what they actually can access for resources shared over their territory because they're right smack dab in the middle of Europe. Right? Great Britain, on the other hand, what are they? What is Great Britain? What is England? They what, Jason? An island, right? So they have access to everything because they're floating out in the North Sea, right there in the Atlantic Ocean. So, in other words, they control the high seas for a long, long time. We talked about quite a bit already. All right, the best thing here for Great Britain, which has helped them for many, many years, even against Napoleon back in the early 1800s. If you cut off the resources coming into Germany in this case, or whatever enemy, obviously in Europe, then sooner or later, it's going to strangle them out. Sooner or later, it's going to choke them out into really competing in this war anymore. So, well, obviously, ever since the war started, England has been blockading Europe, preventing any materials coming into Germany. And that's causing a lot of hardships for the people in Germany. They don't have the resources that they did for many, many years. It's gone. Okay. So again, Germany has to do something, and they innovated with U-boats, submarines. And this was a newer technology. I know, Jenna, you did the submarine, right, for your project? Yeah. I know there's early concepts of it, but as of World War I, with the modernization of the submarine, now this thing can be actually a weapon. Right? There are some limitations, which we already talked about in the video, already kind of mentioned, but overall, these submarines are causing a lot of havoc out in the open water. All right, so for Germany, they got to do something. So as these passenger ships, right? As these merchant ships, as these supply ships, okay, that's the ones they want to target. Right? But anything coming across the water, they realize they got to take out. Right? There's a lot of armaments coming from the United States to Great Britain and France. And as we join in, obviously, there's going to be a lot more. But leading up to World War I, obviously, and as the war is breaking out by 1914, we mentioned that the United States traded with both sides. Right? For Germany, even though they're blockaded, they can use these submarines to kind of get by the blockade. They can use these submarines to take out any ships coming to Great Britain. Right? Or let's say Great Britain into mainland Europe to help with the war effort. So, in other words, they can go undetected. And like the video stated here with the submarines, it's really difficult to tell what kind of ship you're going to come across. Obviously, you don't want to take out innocent civilians, but how foolish is it to actually go on this sailing trip, right? Let's say go on a cruise during wartime in Europe. I think it's kind of dumb, right? But anyway, we'll mention about that when we get to Lusitania. Right, anyway, I did want to talk about some of the crew members here on the submarines. It's very limited, jam-packed, right? It's not like they had showers or running water. It's not like they had even bathrooms. So kind of had to go up on top of the deck once they surfaced and do their business there, right? Or in buckets. But it was very tight, it was cramped. And for some of these submarines, they're only about 200 feet long. So it's not like they can just come in and, I don't know, go up to a ship and take some of these members as prisoners. They just can't do it. They don't have the room. So, fortunately for Germany, right, the only tactic they have out in the open water against Great Britain is just to sink everything possible. And if you're in America, you're hearing these stories, well, you see them as the aggressor. You see them as the one that are causing harm. Oh, they're not taking any prisoners. Why not? Well, they don't have the ability to do it. And at the same time, if you're out in the middle of the Atlantic Ocean and a submarine targets you and your ship is sinking, good luck surviving. There's no way. Actually, a more horrific, terrible death I couldn't imagine other than drowning out in the middle of the open water. Okay, so with these submarines, you can see how villainized they could be and how they saw this as really terrible, terrible tactics of warfare. But for Germany, this is the only option they had. And again, I'm not being sympathetic towards them here, but right, you got to imagine just in their shoes what they're facing. All right, so as that happens here, well, Germany decides in 1915 to unleash unrestricted submarine warfare. They got to take out anything coming across the water. They don't know what is a passenger ship. They have no idea what is a supply ship. They obviously want to target these supply ships with ammunition, with war armaments, with maybe troops that Great Britain has. Right? But unfortunately, they can't tell deep underwater. So in 1915, which you guys read about yesterday, Lusitania was making this trip across the Atlantic Ocean, right? Lusitania was a British passenger ship, but it had 128 American citizens on it. Oh boy. Right, as it was right off the coast of Ireland, a U-boat saw it, targeted it, and, well, shot a torpedo out. I did attach to the video lesson, which I think you guys will enjoy. They did kind of a simulation of it, right? It actually was time for time, frame for frame, the sinking of the Lusitania, because it happened within 20 minutes. So as this was sinking down, the video actually goes, really breaks down every single second, right? Reenacting it through primary resources and just really how this sank off the coast of Ireland, right? This going down obviously underwater. So if you guys get a chance, maybe check out that video, attach to the video lesson. But as this is getting targeted by a German U-boat, right? They didn't realize what this ship was. They just thought, you know what, it probably has armaments under it, which there probably were, because there's a few explosions, and after looking at some of the ship wreckage afterwards, which is still on the bottom of the ocean, right? People still go dive down and see it. You still see champagne bottles. It's kind of like a Titanic in a way, a Titanic scene. Okay, but it's not near as deep, so people can access a little bit easier. All right, but there are a lot of reports that there were some ammunition, war armaments underneath the hull, the deck of the ship, which there probably were. Right, a lot of times the British would play these games and try to disguise it as just a passenger ship. In all reality, they were bringing in as many armaments as possible from America. But, well, as you can imagine, the reports get back home, get back to America, get back to Britain, get all around the world through media, right? That Germany is just targeting anything that comes across. It doesn't matter what it is. It could be a passenger ship, innocent people just getting killed, caught in a crossfire. And there are a lot of reports, too, that Britain put out of the bodies washing ashore on the shores of Ireland, right? Women, children, right? Washing shore, which there are actual reports of that. It's awful and terrible. It's really disturbing to think about. But at the same time, this is warfare. Was it a good idea to make this cruise across the Atlantic close to Britain during wartime when you know these U-boats are out there? Probably not. Right? But you got to imagine Britain's going to use this and try to get the United States involved as quickly as possible. The U.S. through isolationist tactics, they're like, nah, you know what? We're not ready for this yet. We don't want to get involved. Right? Woodrow Wilson said he wanted to try to stay neutral as long as possible. So 1915, did we join the war? No, we did not. So that angered a lot of Americans. It's like, wait a minute, are we just going to let 128 Americans die? Or are we going to get involved? Well, we didn't get involved, which Wilson was feeling a lot of heat from. Like, we can't just let these Americans die and just not do anything about it. So with Germany, what did they do? Well, Germany, after the sinking of Lusitania, they decide, well, we're going to try to pause these policies. We can't get America involved. If America gets involved, it's over with. This stalemate's over, and, well, we're going to lose. Okay, the United States is this massive industrial power. They have a decent military. We're not very strong just yet, but just the sheer numbers is going to overwhelm the Central Powers. So they decide to pause, right? Have a, just a brief break of utilizing unrestricted submarine warfare. And then, as you can imagine, as the war prolongs, as it goes on year after year, Germany's really feeling the heat of it. So they decide to open up that policy again because they have to in order to survive. Their people are starving. They have no supplies to continue this effort. They got to stop the supplies coming into Europe, fighting this war, and America's providing it to the Allied powers. Yeah, a little bit here to the Central Powers too, but mostly to Great Britain, mostly to France. All right, so again, like I said, who controls the communication during this time? Who had access to all the telegraph cables all around the world? Brody Barge. Yeah, Great Britain. So a lot of people are saying, hey, Great Britain, conspiracy, right? Are they the ones that are sending these messages out left and right, trying to get us involved? Are they trying to over-exaggerate this? Maybe. There are a lot of conspiracies out there, again, that Britain Some Lusitania, they got America involved? Maybe? I don't know. Let's leave the conspiracy theories out. But kind of seems a little suspicious, doesn't it? Yeah. Anyway, so as you can imagine, well, Germany decides to ramp up their efforts even more with these policies to try to take out these ships. And here's another one, the Sussex, right? This was a French passenger ship where over 50 people died. Right, so bam, bam, time after time. Germany's just unleashing, right, their efforts out in the water to try to stop these supplies coming in. All right, so we're going to talk about here the Zimmerman note shortly. So I'm going to talk about that here in a little bit. Anyway, here's a good picture of Lusitania. Actually, I thought that picture within your reading yesterday was a good one. I put that within the slide here too, just to see exactly its travel route. Right underneath the Ireland here, right? And as they're getting close, rounding, right? Rounding here where Great Britain is, where it was sunken finally. Like I mentioned, there's a lot of bodies washing ashore. And Britain was making sure that they communicated that to the United States. Right, there are 128 Americans dead. Right, they got to do everything they can to get America dragged into this war. So ramping up these stories, maybe even exaggerating them, was a way to try to prop that to join. All right, here's the Sussex too. So as you can imagine, these pictures are going all across the world. So the United States is just sitting there. Wait, what are we going to do? We got to act. We got to do something. But Wilson still says no. Right? He still says no. We're going to sit this one out yet. All right, finally, what was the last straw? Well, the Zimmerman note or the Zimmerman telegram, however you want to pronounce it. Anyway, it's named after Arthur Zimmerman, who was a German ambassador. Okay. He was reaching out to Mexico in 1917 as it looked like America was going to join sooner or later. As America, it was pretty much inevitable that this was going to happen. You got to imagine, right? Their submarines are taking people out left and right. Okay. They're taking out passenger ships. So, I mean, let's face it, America is not too happy about it. If we were going to join inside, it's probably going to be the Allied powers. Probably. So, in other words, Germany had to do something. This was their last-ditch effort to try to prevent America from joining them. So what did it do? Well, the Zimmerman telegram was sent up. Who controls the cables again? Who controls communication here, Naomi?
Britain.
Yes, Britain does, okay? So Germany, in order to send these messages, let's say to Mexico or the United States, or let's face it, across the Atlantic Ocean, it's got to travel through Great Britain first. Got to travel through London first. Are you saying conspiracy theories again? Oh my gosh, keep them out, all right, keep them out. But for this message, well, Germany decides to try to cover up this message, making sure that no one can crack this, so that in a way they can try to prevent anybody from literally, right? Great Britain, they know Great Britain's watching these telegrams, right? They got to do something to try to cover it up. So they made a lot of these hidden messages, and they had to in order to make sure that Great Britain didn't pick up on it. So they send this one message across. Well, it actually connected from Great Britain's cables to the United States cables. Obviously, you got to get across the Atlantic Ocean. So as this was being sent over, Great Britain intercepted this message. They intercepted this telegram. And this is where the first signs of intelligence is seen really in warfare, that they can use technology for their advantage in order to try to crack codes, right? In order to try to break these codes to win on the battlefield. So Great Britain used many of their agencies here, actually creating agencies. What we know is our CIA, which we'll talk about, right? But theirs is, if anybody knows, what is their like secret agency called? James Bond, anybody? No? Oh, Eli? What? BIA? No. Naomi? Yeah, yes, good. I'm actually kind of, I gotta look at the article yet, but yes, so it's like MI6, yeah. They call it MI6. So anyway, with that, their agency picks this up, and this is the first signs of intelligence that they cracked these codes. And what did it say? Well, it said that, hey, Mexico, actually invade the United States, okay? And leading up to World War I, tensions were rising between the United States and Mexico over undisputed land. The Mexican-American War just got over, right around 30 years before World War I broke out. So in other words, this war could maybe even happen, right? Mexico is not too happy with the United States. We're not friends at this point. And did we take some territory land from them? Yeah, we did. right? So when you think about Texas, New Mexico, Arizona, right? These states here, we took from Mexico. So Germany sees this opportunity. They're like, you know what? Here's a way, a border, right, that America has. Let's face it, we talked about their greatest defense. They're way across the Atlantic Ocean. But in this case, they actually might have an enemy right at their border, and Mexico's that enemy. So they try to build on the tensions between the two countries. They say, hey, if you invade the United States, and, well, as we finish up this war in Europe, okay, this will keep America out of the conflict in Europe. This will prevent them from sending troops across the Atlantic Ocean. So that's one, okay? That's one good thing here for Germany, right? All right, at the same time, well, as they win this war in Europe, so to speak, Germany will send their troops across the Atlantic and help Mexico's efforts to defeat the United States. So in return, what will happen? Well, in return, let's say if Germany wins this now in Mexico here, Mexico will get back these states, Texas, New Mexico, and Arizona. Right, they'll get them back. So overall, Mexico is looking at it and saying, oh, this seems like a pretty good idea. All right, is that like a suicide mission though for Mexico? Do you think they will ever attack the United States? No, no. Even back then, our military wasn't near as strong as what it is today, obviously. But that's still really looking for, no, that's no way it's going to work. So in other words, this was really a last-ditch effort. This was an effort here that Germany tried to accomplish in order to try to prevent the U.S. from entering a war in Europe. Right? They're trying to promise these land and possessions that Mexico once had in order to try to keep, again, the United States from joining the war. Again, would it ever work? Probably not. Some say even because, let's face it, who intercepted it? Great Britain. Conspiracy. Now, this was this effort to try to get the U.S. in. And guess what? Well, it worked. There is actual evidence that this was sent over. Right? There is actual evidence that this telegram was real. So conspiracy theories, throw them out the window. It's just kind of interesting to talk about. Right, Wyatt? Yes, okay, good. All right, so with that being said, America finally joins. 1917, we enter the war. The Lusitania was one thing. We didn't join yet in 1950. But now here, with the Zimmerman note, Zimmerman telegram, 1917, we join. All right, what do we do to get involved? Let me find it here quick. I'll talk about it. Oh, the convoy system. So the last thing here I want to mention is that we need to try to get our troops over across the Atlantic. The only way to do it is, well, to join in many of these ships, have dreadnoughts, right? At the same time, pack them all together in a massive group, just in case if one of these German U-boats, these submarines, comes in and they target one of these ships, we can get the troops on, we can get the supplies on, and try to get them to their destination. So, in other words, well, you have protection, you have power in numbers. And thankfully, let's face it, the United States has the third largest navy at the time. Right? Great Britain has the number one. So if you put 1 and 3 together, I know Germany has the second, but if you put 1 and 3 together, there's no way Germany can compete. And that's how they're going to try to, which they do successfully. That's how they're going to bring these troops, these armaments, these supplies across the Atlantic. Right, again, the biggest fear you can imagine is getting shot down, so to speak, right? Getting and taken down here in the open water. There's nowhere to go. It's not like you can just retreat. It's not like you can just run away. If these U-boats are targeting you, chances are you're done for. Right? These life vessels, these life ships, they're not going to do anything. Right? You're out in the elements, the cold weather, cold water, right? Out in the middle of the ocean, extreme darkness, right? Extreme darkness. And yeah, you're going to die with no food, no resources. But if you have numbers here, if one of them gets targeted, because let's face it, these wolf packs that Germany would put out, these massive fleets of German U-boats, they're limited in number. Right? It's not like they're going to do a massive damage to this convoy system. So the convoy system was a way to try to protect the assets, the resources, the materials, the armaments, and the troops of America getting across the Atlantic Ocean. All right, is there any questions? Okay, so the events leading America into the war. Number one, sinking the Lusitania, definitely. We didn't get involved, but it was pushing us towards the conflict. And it's more to the Allied power stopping. The Zimmerman telegram is the final straw. And then here with the convoy system, this is how we're going to get our troops, our armaments across the Atlantic Ocean. This is how we're going to get our involvement in the war safely. right? Avoiding these U-boats. All right. Any questions at all, guys? Okay, so you have a few minutes here. If you didn't finish your assignment, Lusitania, please work on it now. Okay, and we'll continue tomorrow talking about some of the efforts of the United States, right? In order to try to keep us safe here at home. Again, we have that problem with, well, we have people from all over the world, which is a good thing. But during a war, we got to be worried. We got to be cautious. So we'll talk about that here tomorrow.